we're here today with our editor-in-chief, David Warner.
Hi there.
David, always good to have you here so we can talk together about our latest issue, the winter issue of the DuPont
Winter 2020 issue. And this is a very exciting moment because we just got this into the office seconds ago. So it's our first time looking at it in print. It's been online for a while, the digital edition, which you can find at duPont Registry Tampa.com. But the print edition, which goes to a limited lucky set of households in the Tampa Bay area, has just arrived. And I have to say, I'm liking the way it looks.
It looks great. And as you know, this winter issue is always our traditional real estate issue. We've got to focus on real estate throughout the magazine, some stories about realtors, some stories about houses, and, of course, the other stories that we feature all the time about events and party pictures and travel and some of the other features we have in here. But it's interesting to see what's come up when we start talking about real estate. The cover, incidentally, which you can see right here, is pretty interesting. This house is in South St. Pete.
Old Southeast neighborhood, which is a wonderful, quirky neighborhood right along Lassing Park, a beautiful waterfront park that a lot of people don't know about. The people who own this house and who are selling this house had never been there, and they lived in Old Northeast for many, many years. They just happened to be in their son's sailboat, saw this park, and a little while later, lo and behold, they were buying this house. And it was, I think, to put it politely, in disrepair, and there were 3 houses on the property, and it's amazing what they were able to do with it. And I tell the story in this issue about the transformation that the house underwent and the things that they brought to it, and it also tells you, if you're interested, how you can purchase it. But it's a beautiful place. If I had $3 million in my pocket, I would be out there in a minute.
Now, in focusing on real estate, we not only focused on houses, but we focused on a few realtors, couples that work together in the real estate business and have had an interesting history over a period of time when they've been involved. Been able to touch on some of their recommendations, but also on how they work together. It's pretty interesting.
It was. I mean, as it happened, the winter issue also coincides with Valentine's Day. So we thought, let's look at Realtor Love. And we identified 2 couples that are work in the real estate business together, and 1 couple that work as in a mortgage firm. And it's I think, like any working partnership, like any working or romantic partnership, you have to know each other's strengths and weaknesses, and they do a wonderful job of explaining how that works between the 2 of them in each one of these couples. And they were really delightful people to talk to. I felt like if I hadn't already contracted to buy a house recently, I would have sought these folks out and sought their help, because they're really, really, they're mensches. What can I say? Nice people.
Always good to learn how people operate in our community, notwithstanding the fact that there are plenty of single realtors out there that you want to turn to, are really good at their business. We also focused on an interesting way to sell your house. You know, sometimes they tell you to take all your stuff and get out of the house. They want pictures of empty rooms. Then they say, no, I want pictures of rooms that are full, and people come to look at your house. They see how you live in it. Well, in some cases, our taste is eclectic, I think is the right word, and might not appeal to everybody.
Or personal.
Yeah,
and I think the woman we interviewed, Karen Post, she has a home staging or styling business called Home Frosting, and her recommendations for what to do to your house, if you're interested in selling it, are illustrated in this instance by a home in Bel Air, correct?
Bel Air, yep.
Where we show the before and after pictures, and it's kind of like a little mini episode of Love It or List It. We show what a difference it makes to streamline, to get rid of the clutter, to get rid of the personal items, so that it opens up the space for a prospective buyer to imagine themselves inside that space.
You know, it's interesting. Tastes have changed over time, and the color palette has changed. And so when somebody stages your house, they're able to introduce what's the current hot color and look to a house that may not be the same one that you used when you moved into the house 30 years ago.
Or it could be a neutral color that doesn't stand out too much, so somebody can say, well, I could paint this, or I can live with this for a while.
And tell me a little bit about our travel sequence here to Chateau Elan. What a fabulous place.
We went to a French chateau in Georgia. We went to a French restaurant in Paris in this issue. The Chateau Elan is a remarkable resort outside of Atlanta, which has its own vineyard. And it has a wonderful history of partnering with a French winemaker who developed some award-winning wines there, and the resort itself looks spectacular. Our writer Megan Padilla wrote about this and really tempts you to go there. And the other story is a visit to Le Grand Etoile, which is one of the oldest, most well-known restaurants in Paris. The writer John Palmer Claridge is the food critic for Creative Loafing, where I used to work, and he's also come up with a new book called Drink More Wine, which is about experiences like going to a place like Le Grand Etoile, which is about, I mean, one of the things I found throughout this whole adventure of this issue this time was people who appreciate the value of the right detail, whether you're staging a house or whether it's a thank you note sent to a client, or whether it's the little pear-shaped cookies you put in the plate at this fancy French restaurant.
So not only did we go to Georgia, we go to Paris.
Get to Paris.
And did we get any recipes or anything out of the Paris restaurant?
I don't think they're sharing recipes.
Oh, golly.
When you get you get the Michelin star route, I think they keep those things to themselves.
Yes.
You just get to go and enjoy it.
Definitely. So let's not forget our regular feature about automobiles. The DuPont Registry has been connected to automobiles for a long, long time. And we have a writer who's well-known, Howard Walker, and he's well-known in the automotive journalism area. And this month, in this issue, he featured the Bentley V8 engineered Continental GT. What an automobile. It's a convertible.
It's a beauty.
It is fast. When you put the convertible top up, it's quieter than 90% of the cars on the road.
Have you been in this car?
I've been in this car.
Oh.
It is just the lap of luxury, and the odor of fresh leather is just quite extraordinary. And it drives like a sports car, and it's big. You could actually sit in the back seat of a convertible. Not bad at all. But
so is Howard taking you on his test drives?
No.
I mean, I
keep
keep hoping he'll invite me to go in one of these test drives. I mean, we live in the same building.
Well,
so
yeah.
I figured he'd.
I think he was going to call you to see if you wanted to go in the Volkswagen Bug one, the last of the Beatles.
Oh, really? Yeah. I would have loved to have done that.
Which would have been fun.
Yeah.
That was, incidentally, Howard writes a weekly column for us that's on our internet on DuPont Registry TampaBay.com called Weekend Wheels. And Weekend Wheels is a weekly feature of what Howard writes in the magazine without the pictures. But you get more pictures, but just no paper and ink. Pretty interesting article that he's done on the Continental GT. Fabulous, fabulous automobile.
He makes it sound good enough to eat, which a couple of people who've read this in the office were commenting on. And speaking of which, this is a segue department here. It's it being Valentine's era, Valentine's season. We also interviewed couples who run restaurants together. Two of the most prominent couples in St. Petersburg, Steve and Nancy Westphal, who are behind behind a number of great restaurants: 400 Beach, Park Shore Grill, The Hangar, and you know, you can't really move in St. Pete without bumping into one of their restaurants, and that's a lucky thing. And the other couple is the couple behind Brick and Mortar, one of the best small restaurants on Central Avenue in St. Pete, and their story about how they came to meet Hope Montgomery and Jason Ruhe, R-U-H-E. I'm not sure the best way to pronounce your name, Jason. Hope that's right. And our writer Cindy Stovall also suggested a number of other restaurants which would be perfect selections for a Valentine's date or a romantic proposal or any old kind of middle of the week time to get together with your partner and have a nice meal.
I don't miss the advance press release story on the Valspar Championship coming up on March 16th. Probably one of the biggest events in the Bay Area now. A lot of fun, and it's so interesting. Here you are at Innisbrook, and you're seeing a major PGA event, and it is so accessible.
It is very accessible.
It's
you
easy
can get
in and
really
out,
close.
And the viewing on the course is so easy to get to. So many of these big championships, golf championships you go to, you're stuck in the middle of a crowd where you can't even move and you can't see what's going on. Well, at Innisbrook, your visibility capability is just over the top. So we have some information about it, the up-and-coming Valspar Championship.
And Eric Snyder, who wrote the story, also tells about some of the renovations that have been done at Innisbrook. It's not a place you can actually get a room during Valspar because it's all booked by professional golfers and their entourages, but any other time of the year. And one of the things that he learned when he was visiting Innisbrook, that they have discovered that people who watch the tournament on TV think it looks so beautiful that they come and want to stay at Innisbrook during the year and golf on the same course where they saw like Brooks Koepka and Dustin Johnson and all these other famous golfers who are going to be there in the 2020 tournament.
Now, the duPont Registry Tampa Bay actually has a presence in Sarasota.
Yes.
Which is not really Tampa Bay, but close enough to be called our Bay Area community. And we did a little feature this month on Lakewood Ranch, Florida's Emerald City. What an extraordinary development that is.
It is amazing. I didn't know the history of it till I read this story that Heidi Curpiello wrote for us, and I think it'll be a kind of a revelation to other folks. And it is actually quite close to the Tampa Bay area. And it's been it sort of originated as more like something to appeal to middle-class families, and it's expanded into the luxury market in a big way. There's a lot of famous athletes who have found their homes there, and Dick Vitale, who everyone knows, the ESPN commentator and legendary coach, is sort of like the unofficial mayor of Lakewood Ranch, and is always on about. And Heidi talks to him. It's a lot of fun to learn more about these neighborhoods that are a little bit further afield, but definitely for our readership, for you, I think you'll like it.
Yeah, you want to go down and visit Lakewood Ranch. You want to go take a look at what's going on down there. You can play some golf down there. There's a couple of really great golf courses. They have a Corn Ferry tournament coming up, PGA tournament coming up in a little while. While we're on the subject of golf tournaments, we want to be mentioned this far in advance for you to get ready for the Pelican LPGA tournament coming up later in the month of March or May, whenever it is. I can't even remember now, in Pinellas County in Bel Air at the Pelican Golf Course. More on that later. It's going to be quite the weekend. It's going to be interesting. And this is an LPGA event, which is something different for the golf courses in this area.
And those attract huge crowds. I think that you'll read more about that in our March-April issue, our spring issue, which the focus is the great outdoors.
I've spent some time with Dick Vitale.
Oh, yeah?
He not only is an interesting character with a lot of contacts and a lot of knowledge in the sports world, he is a leading philanthropist.
Yes.
He raises a lot of money, mostly for pediatric cancer care and children with terminal illnesses. He just is an absolute gentleman on how to raise tons of money and do it in a refined way and have a good time. Of course, when did you ever listen or see Dick Vitale when he wasn't having a good time? Always happy. He's in the magazine. I'm happy to have him there. I've known him for quite some time. We did some fundraising together. And in fact, he sent me a basketball signed by Dick Vitale.
Oh, really?
So it's part of my collection of emotionally contacted stuff. One more interesting story on places you got to go. You don't have to go very far for this one. You got to go to Gulfport.
Oh, yeah.
Gulfport in Pinellas County is one of those hidden gems of old world Florida that hasn't been taken over by big box department stores, still made up of people running eclectic and interesting businesses, everything from wine and cigars all the way up to fine art and individual art and some great bars and restaurants.
Oh, absolutely. And there's a festival, it seems like every other week. And particularly there's an arts festival coming up at the top of February, but you'll want to check out. It's a lovely place to stroll, to just hang out. If you haven't ever been there, and I meet many people who actually haven't, who've lived here a long time. It's tucked away, maybe a little outside the beaten path, but it's a really charming town. And if you want to keep abreast of what kinds of developments are happening all around particularly St. Pete, there's a new a relatively new blog that I discovered and which many people around the area have discovered, called St. Pete Rising, which I interview one of the founders of that. And it's really fascinating to see how they view the city as it's rising around us. And there are the number of like hotels and condos and apartment complexes that are springing up in downtown St. Pete is truly extraordinary, really, at the moment. And it's really helpful to have some guys who are like on the street listening with ears to the ground, often scooping the major publications as to what's going up around you. So check that out.
You want to be sure and check that out. Don't forget to check out the party pages in the back. See if you got yourself in print and up on the internet.
Absolutely.
For some of the major social and philanthropic events in the Bay Area. So
and your A&E guide. Don't forget that we've got the DRTB Best Bets calendar, which is a pretty good guide for January through the middle of March of lots of great stuff. It's led by an amazing show that's coming to the Museum of Fine Arts in St. Petersburg called The Art of the Stage. And this takes the set designs, costumes from the turn of the century all the way up to now by fine artists who in some way or another brought their work into the theater. And they're doing a party of the strange, which is the celebratory part of that show, which sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun too.
Now, for you folks out there that want to do a little planning in advance, because you know what happens on Valentine's Day if you decide to go to dinner at 5:30. Every place is full. It's booked.
True.
So you want to be sure and go to our section about Valentine's Dining and look at the Hearts a la carte, where we have some thought processes on a couple of different restaurants in the area offering very special occasions for a romantic evening.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're interested in that, be sure and look them up. And I can tell you this, get on the phone now, because they're going to book up. Every one of these restaurants, from the Left Bank Bistro to Cafe Pont to Cafe Largo to the Creole Cafe, they all book up way in advance, but each one of them offers a different experience for that one special night.
Made your reservations?
No.
For you and Ruthie?
No, I haven't quite got to that yet. I think we're out of town traveling. But
you have an excuse.
We'll make a reservation at a restaurant and go enjoy a quiet evening. Leave the children home, and maybe it's time to reconnect, get your agenda set for the rest of the year.
Yeah, good way to look at it.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's January. This is 2020. Perfect vision coming up for the incoming year, 2020 vision for 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, I want to make sure that I emphasize what I said here in the magazine. This is not the beginning of the next decade.
Oh, this is a bone of contention here.
This is
Please explain that, because I'm not still sure I understand.
It's the end of a decade. The decade doesn't end till the end of the 10th year. Well, that's 2020. But skip the decade conversation. What we're talking about is the introduction of the Roaring '20s.
Yes.
That starts this year. This is the decade of the Roaring '20s, which will be the next 10 years, actually 9 until 2029. But that is going to be 10 years because we start
2029. I think we need another adjective other than roaring. What are we going to be?
Yeah, we can't be roaring because the last time we had Roaring '20s, we had the Great Depression.
Yeah, we got a raring, soaring.
Soaring.
Did somebody say soaring?
How about just perfect vision?
The Soaring '20s is nice.
Soaring '20s and Perfect Vision 2020. So, David, what else do we have to look forward to here in this issue? It'll be out in the mail as we speak.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got some terrific merchants that are in here, and want to bring to your attention the 4th annual wine event called Red, Whites, and Bites. That's going to be Saturday, March 14th for the benefit of the Community Dental Clinic in Clearwater.
Great name.
And some other interesting events coming up. Not to count anything out. What do we got? We got the Grand Prix coming up in a little bit.
Grand Prix is coming up in March, right? And that's a little outside the realm of the calendar in this issue, but look forward to coverage of that and in our March-April issue, which will be focused on all kinds of outdoor activities and outdoor design. And as is our technique that we've done on most of our issues, we're starting to do every time we've almost hidden the DR logo on the cover of this magazine. So if you get a chance to identify where it is, drop me an email. I'd like to know if you spot it right away or if it's taking you a long time. I couldn't find it, but everybody else found it very quickly. So we'll see.
It's pretty easy to spot. We
receptive
made it
you
a
are.
little bit more obvious than normal this time. So keep an eye out for that, and keep an eye out for this magazine as it shows up in your mailbox. And if you need one, don't hesitate to stop by the world headquarters of the DuPont Registry.
That's right.
Okay, thanks so much for being with us today. We're right at the end of when we want to run our broadcast. We will be back with you next week with another interesting DRTB Live from the world headquarters of the DuPont Registry. David, any last comments? I think we've covered everything we need to talk about in here, from the Continental GT to real estate to real love and real estate and
All right.
repurposing your home. It's an interesting article. You're going to enjoy an interesting issue. You're going to enjoy it.
Yeah, we enjoyed putting it together. So I hope you do enjoy reading it.
Okay, so thanks for being with us. We come to you again from the headquarters of the DuPont Registry Organization off of Ulmerton Road in St. Petersburg. We go out and hope you are safe for the rest of the day and week and month and year. Happy 2020, and go out and make it a great day, Tampa Bay.